BRUCAST is back, baby.
This BRUCAST episode is brought to you by the BRUCAST Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now brew-cast.com/store. Link below.
Back with the fire, can't you see the flames? From Deutschland steps comes the BRUCAST name. Voices like thunder breaking all the chains. Unleash the fury like a runaway train.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast recommends to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BRUCAST also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BRUCAST on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links in the description below.
Back here we thrive, we survive.
Hey there, BRUCAST fans, and we are back for another BRUCAST episode. Please leave a comment, and I want to read all of your comments. Engage with the channel, guys. Like, subscribe, all of that stuff. That really helps. I want to read all of your comments. Once again, leave a comment. That's amazing if you do. And I'm going to thank you personally. All right, so we have back in the studio, the virtual studio, Chad Scott. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing great, Brew. This has been a few weeks in the making, probably a few months in the making, so I'm super excited to talk to you. It was fun chatting with you before, and now we get to do it for real, so excited to be here.
Me too. Yeah, I'm excited to have you here, man. So for those who do not know, we tried to do it before, but there was some internet connectivity issues. Doesn't matter. We're back. And Chad, I need to ask you, why Auschwitz is a wonderful place to visit?
Well, I won't say it's a wonderful place. It's a horrible place to visit, but I think it's necessary because, it's a reminder of how cruel the world can be when we let things spin out of control. And, and I know you're coming from Germany, and I think Germany, probably more than any other country, remembers their dark past so they don't have to relive it. And that's one of the places I write about a lot in my book.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic for sure. So why would you say
from Germany, a few from Belgium, and a couple from China? And we didn't talk any politics or anything like that. But a few days into it, so we were camping one day around the campfire, and I don't know how I came out with it, but I basically said that I wasn't for a lot of what's going on in the United States right now because it worries me. And from being in Berlin and seeing, going through the Topography of Terror, which is a museum you guys have at the former SS site and the Gestapo site. And there's several places, the Berlin Story Bunker, the Reichstag, so a lot of things tied to that German history, the memorial to murdered Jews. So anyway, you learn about book burnings and you learn about how, Hitler tried to erase some of Germany's past so he could rewrite his own narrative and scapegoating foreigners and things like that. And when I was talking to these people about that going to Germany was, has really helped me see my own country right now. And it's not a good thing. But anyway, they were all relieved, like, oh, Chad, thank God, because everybody in the whole world thinks that about the United States right now. And we didn't want to say anything, and we were, afraid to ask you. So, I think that's a big piece of why I go to those places. It's a reminder of, darkness, but also there's many other reasons, and I get, I'm sure we'll hit on a few of those, but these places can be healing, and you also feel like you're carrying people who have suffered their, for example, you go through Auschwitz and, it's horrifying, but when you go in with a lot of reverence and empathy for the people that suffered there, you carry their stories with you. And also you see little pieces of yourself as you empathize with people. And that comes back to really help you during your own dark times in your life. So it's healing also. I
see. Did you went to this one specifically with that intention, or that's something that is discovered once you arrive there?
When I started out, it was more, actually, I talk about this story in my book about how my first encounter with dark tourism, where I really this is, I'm intentionally going to a dark place. And it was because we were in Key West at a bar called Sloppy Joe's, which was Ernest Hemingway's favorite bar. And a local came up to us and was talking to us and saying, "Hey, you should check out the graveyard. It's so quirky. It's one of the most quirky things in town. They have goofy epitaphs and and there's chickens running around and they're above ground tombs." And so we checked it out, and it was an experience. You go there and you saw epitaphs saying like, "See, I told you I was sick," or, "Devoted fan of Julio Iglesias," and just really random stuff. And there's one guy with his, he's flexing is a picture of him, but he's flexing his muscles with his shirt off. And it's like, this is a quirky place. And there was chickens and, so we started going to those types of places. For example, went to the catacombs in Paris and the Père Lachaise, and which is where Jim Morrison and Oscar Wilde, Frédéric Chopin, the lovers Heloise and Abelard, so there's so much history in these places, but you also get a lot of reflections by, where else can you go visit Jim Morrison and say thank you for, lighting my fire when I was a kid, and that was one of his favorite songs. But yeah, so yeah, that's a big piece of why I go there is it starts off, pretty innocently. And then I had an interest in history. So I'd go to historic places like Pearl Harbor and things. But the more I went to those types of places, the more I sought them out, and the more I think they were helping me. And I went through a liver transplant, and it really didn't occur to me until after, when I started recovering from that liver transplant. I was out in LA about 6 weeks after my transplant, and I was just out there so I could get exercise, because back home it wasn't nice weather. So Los Angeles, it's beautiful almost all the time. So I was out there and I was in graveyards 2 days in a row looking at celebrity graves. And it just occurred to me how much all these dark experiences, and I've been to many of the world's darkest places, and how much they benefited me on several different layers. One is, how you see your own government. Another is, how you memorialize people that suffered. Another is how those experiences actually come back to help you during your own darkness. And so that's kind of how it happened.
Wow. I'm interested to know how does it change your views on the government? What do you mean by that? If I recall correctly, you went to the 9/11 memorial as well, right? Maybe that's the one?
Yeah, no. So yes, I did go there.
Yeah.
I've been there a few times. I think that one in particular for me was, it just brings me back to that day. And when you leave a place like that, because I remember it so well, I was a young person working in the mental health field at that time. And I remember watching it with other clients in the waiting room, and it was just awful. But then you go there and you can pay respects to that stuff that you had seen on TV. And it just is a really stark reminder of how much you love your own family, and how, so seeing darkness really helps you see the light, helps you stop and smell the roses, to love deeper, to work harder, to especially work harder when you see things, for example, a lot of these people, suffered at the hands of other people. So it makes you see injustices and realize that, those small injustices can turn into big injustices if you don't say anything when they're small. So I think right now within the United States, you're seeing these things that, they're starting to snowball into bigger things, but they didn't start as, big things right away.
What are you talking about specifically?
So, for example, build the wall, so that's just an example. I could go on and on about this stuff, but, so we're trying to keep people out from, South America specifically, but also Mexico and things. And they're talking about building a wall, and they're getting really tough with foreigners, separating families, and coming in the middle of the night or during a work day and just grabbing people, masked people, grabbing human beings and deporting them. And that didn't happen right away. At first it was, we need to do something about the immigration problem. Let's build a wall. But then the wall became, let's terrorize. And they have, they call it alligator Alcatraz in the.
Oh my God, I saw it.
Yeah,
It looks something out of a movie, like a James Bond villain type of place, right?
Exactly. It feels like a little bit like we're living in a James Bond world right now.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Yeah, but going back to the dark places and how they make us enjoy life more, I couldn't agree more. Like, I think it was with you that I was talking about Fight Club last time, right? There's this scene where the guy arrives with the gun behind the other guy's head and just start asking him. So Tyler Durden, the main protagonist, one of the main protagonists, just meets a random guy, points the guns at him, and start asking him like, "What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with your life? You need to tell me right now." And he start babbling something out of the blue. I wanna be a veterinarian, and then he says, "You go be a veterinarian right now. If you don't do it, I'm gonna find you. You're gonna kill you," something like that. And I don't know what happened to the guy, but the whole motivation from Tyler Durden was like, because I scared the hell out of him, I brought him closer to death. He's gonna have a wonderful life right now. I'm doing a favor to whoever. In his mind, he was doing a favor.
I think something like that you probably won't consent to, but there is truth to that. I mean, people pay thousands of dollars to go to these haunted houses that where people literally terrorize you and torture you, and and that so. Not advocating for that, but there's also circumstances like people doing psychedelic drugs. They talk about, it takes you apart and puts you back together. People go to military boot camp. Well, they break you down so they can put you back together. The astronaut effect, where people go, or the overview effect, where astronauts go to space and they look down on Earth and they see how small they are in the universe, and just like they're just this speck of sand in this giant beach, and and how that one thing can be life-changing. So I would say dark tourism, it's such an emotional experience that, it is a little bit like, I wouldn't say a gun to the back of your head, but it's in a way like that, because you see what's really important when you go through Auschwitz. I went down through they call it, crematorium 1, which is still the last, I think it's the last remaining gas chamber that's standing. And you walk down those steps that, thousands of men, women, children walk down, and you're standing, my tour group went ahead, and I just couldn't, I was paralyzed in that room. And I just was like in horrific awe of the things that happened. And you could just picture people falling one by one, and just the sadness that seeped through every crack. But in that moment, I knew that life for me was changed forever. And you walk to the next room where you see the rail tracks going to the ovens or furnaces, and you like the industrialized scale of this mass killing. And then you walk out and you're in such relief that you're out of there, but at the same time, like, wow. And those experiences put into stark contrast what is important right now, what drives me. And like, I could have told you that my family and friends and helping people were probably what drove me in life, but it isn't until you go through darkness that it really shows you that is absolutely true. And you feel what drives you, rather than just, hey, I think this is what drives me. You feel that what drives you.
We had a guest the other day. Her name is Judith Belmont, if I'm not mistaken. She's a psychotherapist. And she developed this cheese metaphor for life, the Swiss cheese metaphor for life. I was like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? And she said, no, listen, hear me out. Imagine your life like cheese and the Swiss cheese, and has all of those holes inside. Those holes are the dark moments, and they were necessary for you to grow. Like when you have and it gives taste to the cheese, and it's a very interesting. Guys, go check it out.
Yeah.
There's a video on my channel. And I feel like we're touching a little bit on that. Like it's
Yeah.
those are the moments that bring meaning. I don't know, meaning to your life. Maybe I'm exaggerating
Well,
a
no,
little
I,
bit.
no, I, no, I think you're exactly right. When you have something terrible happen either to you or to a loved one or even going to these places, it really helps you develop the meaning of your life. These are opportunities. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, he's probably one of the main reasons why I went to Auschwitz to tour it. Was he was a psychiatrist, and he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And it's one of the most famous, I wouldn't call it necessarily a self-help book, but it is kind of a self-help book. But it talks about, it's a memoir of him and his experiences at Auschwitz, but it also talks about how people who have meaning in their life can survive the most horrible circumstances. And what he noticed was, with great accuracy, he could predict who was going to live or die, not necessarily in the gas chambers, but it just out of, I guess, we'll quote unquote, natural causes when they're at Auschwitz, who would die of starvation and things, by not necessarily how healthy they were, but how much will they had to live. If they had something to live for, which is meaning, that came through in those dark times. So, yeah, absolutely.
That's a lot of knowledge. Like that, you see, like some people in life, they are born in, how would you say in English, like in a golden crate, cradle. You know what I'm talking about?
Born with like a golden spoon in your mouth.
Oh yeah. So I'm mixing up in Brazilian Portuguese. We say it a little bit different. When the baby's born in the it doesn't matter. Those I'm not gonna generalize, but you see some people in life that are born like that. They have all the opportunities in front of them. They don't take anything because they already have comfort from the get-go. So they don't have this motivation that maybe someone from a third world country that had to grind their whole life already has,
Yeah. Well, and I'll say it. I talk about that in my first chapter of my book, is how I got into it. And part of that is, I had a relatively good childhood, good young adulthood. It wasn't until I was in my mid 30s, and I had this great marriage. I was married for about 10 years at that point. And then I started getting these autoimmune issues. And with those autoimmune issues, I was basically told, like, we're not sure if this is a deadly type of vasculitis or some that's going to just go away. But I was having these real severe symptoms. So at that same time, I developed a ton of anxiety. And my dad got sick during that time. He's fine now, but at that time he was sick, and I had a variety of these autoimmune issues. And then in the middle of that, my wife just left and said, I can't deal with this. Your anxiety is too much. And so instead of turning towards, somebody, she turned away.
Did you say that with those words, and your anxiety is too much?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that as maybe it wasn't. I'm paraphrasing her. Okay. But I mean, these are many conversations that we had, but that's really what it boiled down to is, and she had her own issues and stuff too. So I mean, there's more to it, but that's really what it boiled down to. And so I had never faced anything until then, and that was, you can either, there's an expression in the United States too, either shit or get off the pot. And, and the thing is I got out of my comfort zone, and I started working towards myself. And the thing is when you go through darkness, it's a natural human tendency to want to stay in your comfort zone. So, alcohol was part of my comfort zone. But I didn't do a ton, but as soon as I recognized that pattern, I started doing something about it. And that's when I started really seeking out a lot of these dark places. And I did a lot of adventure tourism too while I was, so I went through a period of pretty good health. And then I had probably my darkest, what should have been my darkest time is when I was diagnosed with liver disease, and I ended up getting a transplant. And I went through that with almost like zero anxiety because I put in the work and got out of my comfort zone. And I call that reckoning is, have to go through a reckoning when you're in darkness. And then when you do that, you become, a better version of yourself who's stronger, more resilient, who's more emotionally intelligent. And that's really what I did. And dark tourism really helped me with that process.
It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I feel like it's very humane what you've done. And that's something that it's embedded in what being human means. Like we need to go through difficulty in order to level up. Yeah, I'm not sure if you remember the Lord of the Rings. There's this part with Gandalf. He literally goes to hell. He goes through the abyss, and he needs to fight his demons in order to ascend.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of correlations between that and what you've done.
Yeah, when people, I write about Jerusalem. When people think of Jerusalem, oh, this is just this religious place, but there is so much darkness that in history that's in Jerusalem, and so I write about that as a dark tourist and going through Jerusalem. And you're actually, so I'm a Christian. I went, and did mostly Christian things, but also, I saw, prayed at the Western Wall, which is the most famous Jewish religious site. And, and so that was really what I took out of it, is how well people intermingled. But at the same time, you're going there to reflect on the suffering of Christ, and you put your hand where he was executed, and then you go into his tomb where his body was, and you touch the brick where he was laid and put incense on. So whether somebody's religious or not, just going to those places, and even any dark place. There's a good book that was sent to me by a Dr. Philip Stone, who is the world's foremost expert in dark tourism. And he sent me this book on how religious. So he had read my book, and he actually wrote the foreword to my book, but he had sent me a book after reading it on how religion and dark tourism overlap. And, and it's very true, is you get a lot of those same reflections when you go to a dark tourism place versus a religious pilgrimage. You start asking those big questions like, why am I here? Where do you go after you die? Those types of things.
So how do they overlap exactly? They overlap in the sense that you ask about your mortality and life beyond.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like if you go on a religious pilgrimage or you go to a dark tourism site, especially the darker ones, like, the September 11th memorial, the Whitney plantation, which is one of the most, it talks about slavery in the United States from the slaves' point of view. So going to places like that, you're stepping on hallowed ground. It's horrible things that happened out there, and you can make a case there's horrible things that happened. Well, you certainly can make a case there's horrible things that happened in Jerusalem, but even when you're, in Christ's footsteps, those are horrible things that you're reflecting on, the suffering. And so you feel like, you're on hallowed ground, but then you also, when you do that, you get these glimpses of your own mortality and your own, maybe salvation and where you go and things like that.
Have you ever returned to any of them, or it's like a thing you go once, you do you do what you need to do, and then it doesn't work anymore?
Well, I think proximity is, certainly something. So yeah, I've been to New York I think 3 times. I've been to the Paris catacombs a couple times. So there have places that I've gone more than once. If I had the opportunity, I'd go to Auschwitz again even, but, it's not something that, I don't know. I don't necessarily seek them out because I do seek them out, but I don't necessarily need to return because I've already had a lot of the reflections there. But I'd love to, go there with loved ones so they could have the same experience that I have. And that's why I went to the catacombs the second time. I brought, the first time I was married and went with my wife, and the second time I brought my son.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
How old was your son when you brought him there?
Yeah, I brought him there after he graduated from high school, so he was 18.
Did it felt something? It was also impactful for him? Because I'm asking because I went to the Parisian catacombs when I was like 14, 15. I couldn't be less respect. Let me explain it correctly. I did not value enough. Right. For me, it was just a touristic attraction. There was no meaning. It was just bones.
Right.
You know what I
mean? And that's a thing. And what I like to call sort of my brand of dark tourism is reflective dark tourism. So when you go to those places, it's really what's in your heart. And if you go in and look at it as an attraction, you're gonna get an attraction out of it. Oh gosh, I went through there. There's so many bones. It's wow, how cool is that? And so you come out the other side. But when I went through there, I really, I let it sink in, and I think there's a difference between probably at the time I was 34 years old when I first went there. And then, in a 14-year-old, there's a big difference in just your brain structure, and how you're going to be able to take in things. But going there, when you're 34, I went through and like looking at these individual bones. It's like, okay, there's 6 million people buried there, and you're looking at their skulls and their bones and their, this person had a name. They had people that loved them. They loved other people. Did they have kids? What did they do for work? This is going to be me in not that many years, and you walk out that other side, and that's sort of the reflections that stay with you. There's a concept called Memento Mori. And what Memento Mori is, I'll give you the history on Memento Mori. So Memento Mori is a Latin phrase that back in the Roman days, they would throw big parties and parades for generals after they conquered a place. So they would hire somebody for when the general got too cocky and he's just puffing out his chest too much. This guy would tap him on the shoulder and whisper in his ear, Memento Mori. So Memento Mori translates to remember you must die. So it's like it's a way of humbling them. So during the Elizabethan era and the Victorian era, Memento Mori through Christianity started making a comeback. And so it was a remember you're going to die, but on the flip side of that coin, and a lot of times people carry, I don't have one on me right now, but I have a coin, actually several coins that are Memento Mori coins. And on one side, it says, remember, you must die. But on the flip side, it's remember to live. And it's remember to live with great intention and to, your life isn't very long. It's just fleeting. Don't spend it suffering. Spend it doing things that you want to do, loving the people you want to love. And it really changes your outlook on life.
I'm sharing
it gets you out of the comfort zone.
I'm sharing the screen right now of the viewers some coins. They're cool, man. Some of them look very nice with the skull and stuff. Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's really become a part of Stoicism, where Stoicism, if you really boiled it down, is, change what you can change, but if you can't change something, accept it and move on with your life. And it really is a memento, that Memento Mori really is a strong part of Stoicism. And I think being a Stoic is what these dark tourism places really helped me become, where before I would have liked to have fancied myself a Stoic, like the John Wayne type, like nothing's going to bother me, pilgrim, but he showed two emotions. It was either anger or, maybe one emotion. He showed anger and then he didn't show his other emotions. He just kind of was blank otherwise. But I used to try to do that. And when I did that, it just, my emotions built up. But through Stoicism, I confronted my emotions. I wasn't scared of my emotions. I dealt with those emotions and then I moved on past them, and I think, again, dark tourism really helps you do that.
Wow, man, brings so much out of not only of you, I'm sure a lot of people also had similar experiences. Maybe they couldn't explain what was happening, but they must have felt something. I can talk for experience. I went to a concentration camp again when I was like 10 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't fully grasp the horrific things that happened there, but there was like an energy. I believe in energy. I felt something like heavy, I was like, this is serious. Yeah. And before, actually my grandparents took me to a concentration camp because I was making fun of the Second World War. I was like a stupid child. Like, brutal, like you have no idea what they're talking about. Let's go to Germany right now. I was very lucky that I had amazing grandparents that care about my education. And the next international trip that we had, we just went to Germany at the time. I was not living in Germany. And they took me to a concentration camp. Man, I just felt something so heavy. And it changed my view. And again, like maybe I never went to another one again, but I'm inclined to after meeting you and having this conversation that we are having. Like, I'm sure my views will expand even more. I'm gonna be even more grateful for my life, have even more respect for the ones who are past. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, when you go to them, even if you go to them a second time, you do get new reflections and new, you might not get as many as you do the first time going to those places, but certainly you get more, when you like, there's other things that I saw that I didn't see. I don't remember off the top of my head, but when I went to the catacombs for the second time, for example, or the 9/11 museum, for example. So yeah, they're powerful. And in terms of energy, they do have energy. Is it a mystical type of energy? I don't know, but it's certainly, you feel it, whether that's your own brain causing that, or there's an energy coming from the people that have passed. I mean, people can differ on where that energy comes from, but there is an energy in there. And regardless of where that energy comes from, it etches in your brain. It etches in a part of your brain that doesn't forget. When you have emotional experiences, they etch much deeper than going through and just reading plaques like in a museum. If you let them sink into your bones, and you, like I said, you go in with reverence and you empathize, you're going to have an emotional experience when you go through those places. Actually, kind of going back to what you're saying about your grandparents. So when I was younger, the narrative behind America dropping atomic bombs on Japan was, we had to do it. They were going to fight to the last person. They were, it's just something America had to do. So I went to Hiroshima, and with adult eyes and being able to think objectively, and I have that narrative in the back of my mind. So I knew it was going to be emotional, but you go through there, and when I went in, there's this big long mural, and it's a beautiful ancient city. And on the one end of the mural, there's like a class picture of life-size children taking a picture. And then I was going through with these kids about the same age as that class, and they stopped in front of that picture, and it almost looked like a mirror image. And then right on that wall next to those kids was the exact time the bomb dropped. So like right then and there, it's like, I knew that experience was going to be emotional. And then you go through and, and you find out that most top American generals and a lot of the top brass, they thought, Japan was going to surrender, and there was no need to drop an atomic bomb. And I just went through and I learned about the black rain, where they were so thirsty. They're drinking this black rain that was coming down. But it ended up being nuclear fallout. And so most of them died from cancer and exposure to nuclear fallout, in the months, and some years later died of cancer. So, walking out of there, my narrative on Hiroshima completely changed. I knew that, it necessarily wasn't, it wasn't a good thing that we dropped bombs on civilian populations. But when you go through a place like that, again, you actually feel it then. And, you feel how wrong it was, rather than you just know how wrong it was. You feel how wrong it was. Maybe that's what I'm trying to explain.
You also feel the radiation, right? There must...
Well, yeah. I don't know if there's any radiation no big radiation anyway. Chernobyl, on the other hand, people go there. I've never been there, but there's a lot of dark tourists that have gone to Chernobyl, and you have to wear suits, I think, in some places there still.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Chad, let's go into a quick sponsor break, and then we're gonna be right back. Sure. All right. See you soon. Parents, have you been searching for an app that's both fun and educational for your kids? I've got something exciting to share with you today. It's called FunTastic Plus. FunTastic Plus is a free app where education meets entertainment, designed specially for children ages 2 to 12. It's built by experts, completely ad-free and totally safe, so you can feel confident handing your phone or tablet to your little ones. Inside the app, kids will find a world of engaging content. Their favorite cartoons, audiobooks and songs to spark imagination, educational games that make learning fun, and all of that to keep them entertained while supporting their development. FunTastic Plus is available on iPhones and iPads and even works offline. So whether you are on a road trip, flying, or just at home, your kids will always have something to enjoy. So if you're ready to give your kids a space that's both fun and educational, download now FunTastic Plus for free on the App Store. FunTastic Plus, a safe and ad-free educational platform for kids. Link on the description below. Alright, and we're back. Chad, I must say your internet is sublime today.
Thank you. Good to hear.
Yes, no.
I felt so bad after that last time, but
no worries.
I didn't have no power over that.
It happens.
Yeah.
Have you watched this TV show Chernobyl? Came out 2019.
You know what? I saw the first episode. I do want to get back to that, but I heard that's really good.
It's really good. It's not that long, and it presents you with all the impact and consequences of this disastrous accident. It was an accident, right?
Yeah.
And I think to this day you're not allowed to go there because of the high levels of radiation. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, I think some people, I don't know that you're allowed to go there, but there's still, I mean, I don't know what the war in Ukraine now, but a lot of people have gone there to tour it. Yeah. Yeah. They have tours there and stuff, but I don't know if it's officially allowed, but people do it all the time.
I mean, that's really dark tourism because you're killing yourself. If the radiation's still there, like I would say it's not worth it.
Yeah, I'm not going.
Yeah. So
there's an episode of there's a show called The Dark Tourist. I think it's on Netflix in the United States, and it's a guy who he's not necessarily a dark tourist, but he goes along with a lot of these dark tourists going to a lot of these different places. But he goes to Chernobyl, which is the show I don't think really talks a lot about dark tourism the way I do in terms of how it can be a reflective healing type of experience. It sort of sensationalizes it, but it's a decent show, if you have that in mind.
Now, when you get to those places, is there any type of ritual? There's anything that you tell yourself in order to start the healing process, or you just let it flow naturally?
I think the day I go to, especially, dark tourism is on a big spectrum. I mean, on one side you have ghost tours, ghost hunts. I don't know if you've ever been to the Berlin dungeon, but there's also these dungeons around.
It's for fun, though. It's
yeah, right. So those are fun, but there's also, that's considered dark tourism. It's on the mild side. There's museums like the Clink prison, over there. Over here, you can tour Alcatraz or the Eastern State. So those are, on the milder side, but then, but prisons, I mean, that can be either way. But then there's also cemeteries and, disaster tourism like the Chernobyl, battlefields, and then really dark sites of like genocide and, mass killings like the 9/11 museum and things like that. So the reflections you get definitely differ between, those milder sites and the more serious sites. And I got to get back to your question. What was your question again?
Is there any type of ritual or anything that you always say to yourself when we get to those places, or you just let your imagination flow and the healing goes naturally? Walk us through this process.
I would say on the mild sites, I really don't prepare. I just go, maybe learn, maybe look at the history a little bit, but I really don't.
Okay.
You can walk into the Berlin dungeon and not have any, you could just, it's fun, but you do learn stuff. But when you go to the more serious sites, it's almost like going to the funeral of a loved one. So that's really how I felt going to, not Chernobyl, Hiroshima, places of war and genocide. So when I've gone to those, I really try to take on a serious mindset before I go really reflect on what I'm about to do. And that's really about it. So you go in with an open mind. I don't go, and there has been times where I had a credit card issue, and I chose to not go to a place that day because I was stressed out. So I think if you go into those places and you you don't take it seriously, you could actually, I mean, not only is it disrespectful to their memories, but it's also, it can be harmful to you because if you go through something of such tragedy without any empathy or reverence for what happened, that's going to decrease your empathy when you're, in your own life, so if you don't have empathy for somebody suffering, you're more likely to just blow it off in your real, in your own life if you see suffering.
Yeah, yeah. I think I can talk for myself, right? When I went to the catacombs, I had no empathy because I had no connection whatsoever to the story or the people there. I had no context. I think having the
Mhm.
context changed everything. I mean, where the first or which World War started with the prince who got shot? I think it was the
As well for Franz Ferdinand, World War One.
World War One. There you go. I was
Yeah.
watching on YouTube the exact place where he got shot. It's a normal corner,
Yeah.
it's a regular street. Imagine if you're walking there and you have no idea that's where it happened. You're not gonna feel anything. You need
Correct.
actually to have done some research and know the context in order to immerse yourself in this world. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, you're 100% right. So I think it is completely to do with your mindset. And when you're younger, going through some of these places, I think you had to have, somebody kind of coaching you because it's hard for a 14-year-old to just automatically get the right mindset to go through a place like that. So you probably need somebody that's kind of, on you the whole time about, okay, let's refocus. How do you, where you ask reflective questions. And that's one thing that I do too, is when I go through these places, I will ask myself sort of, gosh, what do you think you would have done in this circumstance? How would you have handled that? And sort of try to place yourself in their shoes. And that makes a big difference. So a lot of it has to do with your intention. I would say I went to a lot of these places, at least in the beginning, the more serious places that I went to, for example, Pearl Harbor. I went there as somebody who just wanted to learn about the history. And then you get these reflections going through there. But when you go through with intention of having these reflections, you have a lot more of the reflections. And it really does. That's when it becomes, very life-changing.
At what point did you say, no, this deserves to be a book? Like, how many places you had to go in order to have this realization?
Okay, so kind of a funny story. So I was in Germany and Poland and then I was in Oslo. And in Oslo, I started feeling sick.
Oh.
And I had liver disease for a couple of years, and I've been dealing with it, off and on, but I started feeling really sick in Oslo. So I didn't do much. The only thing I really did in Oslo, I went to the Munch Museum where they have the picture of the Scream. And then I went to, the main reason I went there is I went to find my great-great-grandparents' grave because they immigrated from Norway. Yeah, so I found my great-great-grandparents' grave in a church they helped start, and so mission was accomplished. But anyway, so I'm in my room in Oslo, kind of just watching the days go by until I can go home. And I read an article in National Geographic, and it was on dark tourism. And I'm like, holy crap, I have been to like every place that they're talking about in here. And they interviewed a guy named Dr. Philip Stone, so the same one I was talking about before. So I went through, I got home. I ended up on the transplant list right away. So I was home, and within a month I was on the transplant list. And about 6 weeks after that, I was actually transplanted. So what I was feeling sick in Oslo, it was my liver giving out. I didn't necessarily know that. I thought maybe I had COVID or something, but it was my liver. So, when I was recovering from that, then that's when I went out to the graveyards in Hollywood and walking around. But that's when it came to me. It's like, oh my God, I should write a book because I've been to all these places. And I mean, there's many places I haven't been, but I've been to, definitely enough to fill up a book and more. And that's when I felt like I should write a book. So I put out a concise edition of my book. That Dr. Philip Stone contacted me, said he read my book, liked it, and we developed a friendship. And then he wrote the foreword to my main book. So, and his brand of dark tourism is very similar to mine. He does a thing called mortality mediation, where it's basically people go to dark tourism sites to kind of meditate on their own mortality, which I say that, but also there's lots of reflections you get too. So for example, I went to the Jesse James house where he was shot. Jesse James is a cowboy who,
yes.
he was a gunslinger in the Old West here in the United States, really famous in the United States. He was a bank robber, and he was hanging a picture on a wall, and he was shot by his good friend, probably his best friend, Robert Ford. And that night, I just had a lot of reflections on, gosh, when I've been betrayed, and there's been times where I have felt betrayed through work or by people I was dating or whatever. And it just makes you think about kind of your own betrayal in your life, friends betrayed, and those are the type of reflections you get when you go in with kind of that sense of awe, not a good awe, more of a bad awe, but it's an awe nonetheless.
No, but it does make sense, because we as humans, we understand the world through stories. That's why Hollywood is Hollywood. That's how we make sense of our past, present, futures, like how we understand realities through stories. So when you go to those places, you're basically reliving a famous story, like famous or infamous in that case, I would say.
Infamous, yeah.
Infamous stories. And you just put yourself in there, put yourself in perspective of this whole thing, and question things. Makes totally sense.
Yeah. For example, with the Jesse James house, I mean, you think about, the betrayal of Jesse James, but at the same time, why did Robert Ford do it? He was.
Do we know why we do it?
Well, yeah, I think it was a few different reasons. One is there was a reward. So he killed Jesse James, and he was pardoned right away by the governor because they wanted him dead. And I don't know, I can't remember if he collected reward money, but he went around the country and he got paid to reenact him killing Jesse James. So he made a ton of money, but in the end, he actually was killed himself. He started a bar out in Colorado somewhere, and somebody came into his bar. I believe, I might be getting the details a little screwed up, but somebody came in the bar and killed him, kind of. And it's like, you live by the gun, you die by the gun, is kind of the Old West saying. And, there's a lot of truth to it when you're Robert Ford.
Oh my God. So he used to tour around reenacting the killing of Jesse James.
Yes.
What a life. Oh my God. Imagine nowadays, I don't see this ever happening nowadays. It's such a completely different world. Imagine you killed someone and now you need to reenact. People love you because you killed someone. Well, those people exist. Let's not get in there.
Well, actually, if you want to look at one person dying, so Franz Ferdinand, his death was the trigger for World War I. But if you look at that all the way through, so World War I ended with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles in the Palace of Versailles, which I also talk about in my book, is going through the Palace of Versailles and looking at, reflecting on Marie Antoinette's life, but also the palace, or the Treaty of Versailles was signed there. But what that did is it put such harsh economic restrictions on Germany that allowed the conditions for the Nazi party to take over. And then when the Reichstag burnt, then Hitler really sunk his teeth in, and that's where, then the rest is written. But it really boils back to Franz Ferdinand, if you really look at that trigger. So one person dying, I mean, who in the world right now, if they were assassinated, might trigger world wars? I mean, there's probably people.
It's butterfly effect, right? It's hard to it's hard to know what's going to happen.
Yeah. 100% the butterfly effect. Yeah.
Chad, I know that that's a fact. A lot of people, they unknowingly, they create projects, they do jobs that they probably don't like it, with this intention of creating an immortality project. That's a thing. They want to live forever, but they don't know about it. Most people don't know about it. That they just want to be famous for this for the sake of being famous. So
Right.
their image, their name will live on. You know, they put some
Right.
rich people, they put their names into universities or bridges, whatever. Some others, they you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my question is, why do you think it's so easy to forget that we're gonna die, but at the same time, we all know about it? It's you know what I mean? It's so conflicting. We need to go to those
Yeah.
dark places in order to remind ourselves of it, but at the same time, we kind of know. You know, it's like maybe we're all afraid of admitting it. Isn't it
Yeah.
one of the biggest fears, if I'm not mistaken, is the fear of death?
Well, right. So let me throw this in the context. So when I was young, I had this no fear of dying. You know, I flew airplanes. Well, still fly airplanes, but at that time, it's like nothing's going to hurt me. I'm not going to die. No fear of death. When I started getting sick with that vasculitis, I had a profound fear of death. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to leave my family. I'm going to leave my wife. This is going to be awful. I mean, that was just plaguing my brain. And it caused me to, I don't know if I was clinically depressed, but pretty damn close if I wasn't, you know, and that was sort of my main thought is like, I don't want to die. And so fast forward, going through these dark tourism spots, being diagnosed with a fatal illness. So, I mean, my prognosis was death. I had, you know, the person with the condition that I had lived about 5 years before they die on average. But then also during that whole time, I was diagnosed with liver cancer, which has a 5% survival rate. Found out it was not true, but it was 9 months I thought I had liver cancer.
What do you mean? It was not true? The doctors were wrong or something?
They were wrong.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So I had this test by a company called Exact Sciences. They make Cologuard. And they came out with this test called OncoGuard. And they said, this is a liquid biopsy that has a 98% chance of finding cancer. And so basically I was told, so I failed that liquid biopsy. So I was positive for cancer. Mm-hmm. And then they did an image of my liver and they found a nodule on my liver that said, okay, there's the cancer. It's too small to do anything right now. So we got to wait to see if it grows and then they can cut it out. Or if it grows too much, then I won't qualify for a transplant. If it grows to a certain size, then I can get a transplant earlier. So I mean, there's a lot of variables, but you still think you have liver cancer, and you know what the survival rate is. So anyway, during that time though, I didn't fear death at all. I gave myself permission. I think going through a lot of these places, and you don't feel so alone in your suffering. I think that's a huge reflection that you get when you go to, I mean, even when you go through the catacombs, like there's 6 million skeletons in there. Every one of those people are dead. And, and you go to graveyards and you go to cemeteries and you go to, wars and genocide. And so all these people have suffered at some point in their life. They're in somewhere, a different place, whether there's a heaven or there's just blankness, whatever, doesn't really matter. I mean, and I guess I just gave myself that release from that fear of dying, and it made life so much easier. And actually, I saw my liver disease, transplant, everything as almost an adventure. It was an adventure rather than it was something traumatic to me.
Would you recommend that to everyone? I mean, anyone who is almost dying or has some type of liver disease or something like that, would you say it's like the best way to get better mentally, right? Like get out of this headspace where you feel like you're gonna die.
Yeah, I would say no. I don't think it's the best. I don't think it's the best thing. Could it be the best thing for a certain person? Yes. Was it the best thing for me? Yes. Could it be the best thing for a lot of people? Yes. But I would say if you're not sure about that, talk to a therapist and maybe make a plan for how you want to proceed in the unknown.
Okay. All right. But why is that? Do you think there's any negative effects of going to one of those places unprepared? What's the worst thing that could happen in your opinion? So
the worst thing that could happen is you lose empathy and sympathy for people that suffer.
Okay.
So that's what I would think. There might be some people that for example, if they went to Auschwitz, if they were just on a tour with their family in Poland and they're going to Krakow and it's like, it's a beautiful city that you can, eat these great pastries and, but then then they just go to Auschwitz. You can't just go to Auschwitz. I mean, it's impossible to just go to Auschwitz and get nothing out of it. But if you go there with the mindset like, I don't care at all. And that is probably very damaging.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why. Yeah. Do you believe in ghosts? That's something that I was thinking before. I was thinking, imagine if we're on one of those places at night, what the crazy things that can happen. I don't know.
Well, I've gone on a lot of ghost.
Really?
I've gone on some ghost hunts. I've gone on a lot of ghost tours, but ghost hunts. Gettysburg is one of the places that in the United States. So I've gone on some ghost hunts there and had some experiences, but I can't say that they were for sure supernatural. But the craziest one I've ever gone on was it's called the Lizzie Borden House, and so back in the late 1800s. Legend has it that Lizzie Borden killed her dad and her stepmom with an axe. And, she hit her dad, like 40 sometimes and her stepmom, like 15 times. And anyway, so I went to this house and it's supposed to be one of the most haunted houses in the world. And it's considered an unsolved mystery because she went through trial and she was let off. But back then, there's a lot of variables to things where, for example, she took a picture and signed these pictures and gave them to the jurors, and she dated one of the jurors. And, so there's a lot of people think the uncle did it, which I actually think the uncle did it. But anyway, so it's this unsolved mystery case, most haunted house in one of the most haunted houses in the world, certainly the United States. And I went there and to answer your question, I don't know if I believe in ghosts or not. I want to believe, but I haven't had enough. And, so I've had some things happen to me, but it's like, I just don't know. So I went to Lizzie Borden's house. I slept in her room. I slept in her bed.
No, come on. You spent the night there?
I spent the night there. I was actually even in the house for a couple hours by myself before. So it's a bed and breakfast. And so you go there during the day. You can tour it, and if you do tour it, there's a great coffee shop next door. They actually carry my book, that is really good. But yeah, you go there, and there's a mannequin of both the dad and the mom. After they get their faces chopped up. I mean, and they're just laying there throughout the night. It's so crazy. And yeah, I was in that house for a couple hours, just kind of alone, walking around, and you definitely get vibes, but I didn't necessarily experience anything. I tried, but I will admit I was too. So one of the most haunted parts of that is the attic, where I think it was the maid lived in the attic, or the housekeeper, and that's supposedly one of the most haunted, but I was too scared to go up there and sit by myself.
Were you alone, or there were other people in the house?
I was alone for a couple hours, but then there were a family of 4 came in and also stayed there that night. So it was just us in the house, and we actually hung out in the same room and ate pizza together. And I think we were all too scared to just walk around and stuff, but it was quite the experience. And it looks like it would be haunted.
But maybe the vibes, that's what we were talking about before. They were just there because you knew the story. Do you think it would be the same if you just went there thinking it's just a bed and breakfast without knowing the whole back murder and thing? I don't think so, because your mind wouldn't be in the right place,
Yeah, I think that place in particular, they have it looks like it's right out of the 1800s. So it looks haunted. When you go in there, it just if you had a picture in your brain of what a haunted house would look like, that looks like a haunted house. So I think that might be part of why it seems so, if it was all updated, because you can do that. You can go to hotels that had something really traumatic happen, Charles Dickinson died in this room, that type of stuff. And and then it's made up to be current day. It's like, you don't necessarily have the same vibes because, this awful, it's kind of like the street corner thing you're talking about. You could walk through a street corner where there was a tragedy, and if you don't know about the tragedy, nothing's going to happen. So I think that same thing would happen But anyway, going into that house, even if you didn't know anything, I mean, it would give you vibes just because it's a creepy house.
You know,
Yeah.
there's this story that creeps me out. I also don't know if I believe in ghosts, but there's this story of the from the, is the Annabelle doll that you're not
Yeah.
supposed to touch.
Yeah.
Oh man! Apparently, a guy touched, like for 5 minutes. He had to move it somewhere else. Like 1 year, 2 years ago, he died. He died. He was like healthy as
Wow.
a bull, and he died. I
Yeah.
think you say healthy as a horse in English, right? I don't know.
Right.
But
Right.
this one, I don't know, man. I also don't know. It's creepy as fuck.
Well, another thing too that a lot of people believe in is, and I write about this one also, is you go to the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, in Luxor, across the river from Luxor, and you go down into these various tombs, but one of them is King Tutankhamun, King Tut. And so Lord Carnarvon and Howard Carter and people that had first explored this tomb, I don't think they died, but a lot of the people that went in there did die, and they talked about the curse of King Tut's tomb. But even Lord Carnarvon himself or Howard Carter didn't believe in the curse, but some people do. I mean, who knows? I'll tell you this. This is the craziest thing that has ever happened to me. And this is, I don't know if it's supernatural or if it's religious or if religious is supernatural. I mean, I don't know. Make of it what you will. But I was at the Vatican, and then there's this goofy 3-month rule where it's like if you're blessed by the Pope at the Vatican, you are protected for 3 months. Okay, so within that 3 months, back at home, I left this house here. I was going to work. It was really, really foggy out. You couldn't see in front of you at all. And I'm always running late, so I was pushing, going probably a little faster than I should. So then I hear this voice, and I've never heard a voice in my head. And I hear this voice say, "Chad, slow down. There's a car coming at you." And it just felt like that was not my own thought. That was something inserted in my head. Sounded like a voice. What the hell? So I slowed down immediately. And I'm thinking, like, was that God? Was that, like, what was that? And within probably 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, there's a car flying at me in my lane. So had I not slowed down, had I not heard that thing, I reacted so fast, almost went off the side of the road. And had I not reacted that fast or slowed down, 100% sure that there would have been fatalities for sure.
I remember that story. I think you told me last time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, so it was not your voice. It was like a female. Could you tell from who it was? Like it was which gender? It was a female, male, someone you knew.
It was a male voice,
but it was not
Yeah.
yours.
It was not my voice. It wasn't like my typical thought. It almost felt like a thought inserted in a head that was kind of vocalized. It really weird. It's really hard to explain, but that's the best I can explain it is like a thought inserted in my head that was vocalized.
What's your best explanation for it?
I choose to think it was God, but I know that it's mind blowing. Yeah. So, but that's what I think.
I've been watching a lot of those alien documentaries recently, and there's so much of it coming out, and because I mean they're real, they exist, it's true, and some of those people are researching how to summon them in the U.S., and they have been successfully doing it for many years, and they keep calling those different crafts. It's a thing. And they all say it's all about I think they call it psychonics. I forgot the correct term, but it's all mental. It's all in your mind. Like we have some type of antenna in our brains, or our brains are some type of antenna, and we're able to communicate with them, and they're able to communicate with us. It's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it though.
Yeah. I actually don't know anything about that, but I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if that's what happened to me, heck, that makes sense. I mean,
Who knows?
I've been trying to make sense of it ever since it happened, and the only thing I can come up with is like, okay, that was an all-knowing God that told me that there was a car coming at me.
Listen, man, what an interesting conversation. I need to ask you, do you have any future dark tourism planned?
You know what? I don't. Well, I'm looking at going to Scotland. My
Some people die there, I'm sure.
actually, oh, actually, I don't. Yeah, so Scotland definitely has a lot of dark tourism history, and that Philip Stone actually just put out a book, and I think you can get it in Europe. In the United States, I think it comes out soon, but it's a book on 111 places in Scotland, that dark places in Scotland that you shouldn't miss. So that is a really he wrote one for England, and I'd read that one, and that's a really good one too. So I'm really excited to get his Scotland book. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to go next. But I just got back from Africa. I spent 2 weeks in Africa tenting, so that yeah. Won't be going anywhere anytime soon, other than maybe around the United States for a while. But.
All right, Chad. So I wish a lot of fun in Scotland whenever you go there. Please remind the audience the name of your book.
Beyond the Darkness: Transformative Journeys Through Dark Tourism, and that's Dr. Chad Scott, and you can find me at drchadscott.com.
All right. Any final remarks?
Just. Keep up the good work, Brew, and I'll try to do the same. And I think if I have to give anybody some advice, it's just step outside of your comfort zone. You don't have to go to the darkest place right away. You can do dark tourism in your own backyard. Everybody has a graveyard nearby or a historical site nearby where you can just go and just really reflect on people's lives. And that's really what dark tourism is reflecting on people's lives, and by doing that, it comes back and benefits you. So you don't have to go into the darkest place right away. You can just go to your nearby cemetery.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BRUCAST store, Explore store, filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. Again, that's brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. Be a BRUCAST model and get free stuff. We'd love to see how you and your loved ones enjoy BRUCAST. Snap a picture of yourself, your family, your friends, or even your pets wearing BRUCAST merch, or watching an episode of the show, and send it to us and become part of BRUCAST. We'll feature you and your pictures at the end of every episode, just like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now. You can upload your pictures at brew-cast.com/contact or tag us on social media. Alright everyone, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye bye.